crunching noise.
Go on, I think a good introduction from you would be sweet and put me at ease.
A good introduction.
Yeah.
Oh, man. A good introduction is really just stating the fact that you need no introduction. Who you are listening to is my good friend of, how many years?
I don't know, man.
Of
School time.
16 years.
26 years.
Yeah,
Good.
16 years.
We were cradled together as babes in arms. No, like school times. So
yeah, so
that's a long time. I actually had to look back at when school was started the other day for like applications and stuff. It's 2004. So 16 years.
16 years. You nailed it. Matt's is still on point. So good friend of 16 years, fellow musician, but insanely talented. Your first instrument was the bass.
Bass, yeah.
And then you moved on to everything.
No, bass is the main thing. But also playing guitar and double bass and ukulele for teaching stuff if it comes up. And if I was ever asked to do it, if someone was stupid enough to pay me, I would do ukulele at a gig or something. And I sing a lot as well. I pretty much sing with every gig I do. Whether it's like solo gigging or backing vocals alongside someone or something. So, yeah, man, a few different things going on.
So you would class yourself as a session musician?
I guess so. I don't want to already get into like loaded term deconstruction, but like I think that's a bit of a weird word. I guess like I always say like I'm a freelance musician more so.
Okay, yeah.
Because I think that it involves so many facets of music, like what I do and what a lot of musicians do. To me, a session musician is someone like Steve Lukather from Toto, right? The guitar player who's played with like an insane roster of people, like been on thousands of records, or like Pino Palladino, the bass player, who's been with like John Mayer and Nine Inch Nails and James Taylor and D'Angelo and everyone else. Like you know, he's a session musician because he's primarily getting called just to play sessions with artists, whether that's recording or live, you know. It's obviously a different meaning to what it was. Like back in the day, it was session musician was literally like going between like 5 or 6 sessions in London, like, or wherever you lived, like in a day. And, you know, there's obviously big scenes in the US as well, but like a guitar player would go and do 5 or 6 sessions in a day and just do like a jingle here and, you know, an afternoon slot on the BBC there and a pop song there and stuff. That's session vibes. So you do get some people who still do that.
Yes.
But I think there's a few specialised people. So I guess I do sessions, but the long and short of it is like I feel like I call myself a freelance musician more so. So freelance musician is probably more accurate.
Fair.
There you go.
So I want to talk about how we got here to begin with. So how old were you when you picked up the first instrument?
I was like 12 when I started dabbling with my brother's guitar. My older brother, he used to play his guitar, good guitar player. And I kind of gravitated towards playing bass lines on this acoustic guitar because that's sort of what it's like super corny. This is like the opening to a personal statement. Like from the day I picked up a guitar, I was destined to be a bass player, which is in itself a joke. But like I just ended up playing more bass parts because that was what I think I ended up hearing more on records and just wanted to replicate that. And I also think it kind of came a bit easier playing bass.
When you say you hear bass on records, like, so for some people, assume that someone isn't a music head. They listen, like, you're like, I'm a lyrics guy or I'm a beat guy. You're a bass guy. Like a good bass line will get you.
I think it's probably a chicken and egg thing. Like now, obviously noticing bass the most, it's kind of, because I spent so much of my career learning stuff by ear, like a lot of what I can hone into now is based around those lower frequencies. But also just in the beginning, I don't really know why, it just kind of popped out of a record to me. You got the whole texture of it and it just became, that was the thing that was more prevalent out of everything else, I think. So
how do you hear something like that and think, I want to make that?
I don't know. I mean, the first time I can remember hearing bass predominantly on a record was listening to Red Hot Chili Peppers albums.
Yes.
And like, you know, you can say what you like. I mean, Anthony Kiedis is a terrible lyricist and like they are a bit of a joke as a band sometimes, but they've got some absolute bangers of
phenomenal records.
They've got great records and great singles and the musicianship. It's just, you know, they're one of the few kind of modern bands that have had this real binary thing of like songwriting and musicianship together. you know.
Right.
And you got that a lot more back in the day. With like 70s and 60s rock bands and stuff, but they're kind of one of the I think the few that have still carried it on from like, you know, their inception until now. Still,
Right.
It's still about the musicality, and there's a lot of musicians that are fans of them, and it's still that musical impressiveness comes across to like people who don't know anything, which at the time was obviously me,
Right.
because I was just like, what's this? This sounds kind of cool, and the bass parts just kind of popped out to me, I think, because they're quite complex, but also very musical, and they've just got quite a cool sound. And Flea is obviously like a legend in the bass scene now, and like knowing that on the other side of things is interesting, that I picked up on that before. And then, just I think started playing some of those bass lines, and then that was when I think I was 11, and then when I was 12 or 13, I got my first bass, started playing in a band with my older brother and some of his mates. I was actually singing before that, more so as like a sort of like a pre-pubescent 11-year-old, like just singing along to records. And then my brother's band first of all needed a singer, and I did that, but I was like
Nice.
which was cool, but the problem was I had like crippling anxiety as a you know, a young teenager, wouldn't sing in front of anyone, so that was completely like pointless. So ended up playing bass, someone else in the band sang. I would sing like one tune each gig to kind of just get me into that. And that got me into like singing and playing bass, which I do a lot now, actually.
What's a lot? Like all the
Like
time?
pretty much like I don't really do many gigs without a mic in front of my face.
Wow. Okay,
Just
that's a big change.
Yeah, always singing backing vocals or like taking the lead on a few tunes. And then I've got my own trio that I lead where we do blues and soul covers and stuff, and I sing and play bass in that. And then I do quite a lot of solo gigging now. So anyway, I'm moving too far forwards. It's like
It's all good.
it's like
So you
bass, and then did that we just played with loads of different bands growing up, and always with people older than me. I was always kind of like the young kid in the band playing bass. And then I was sort of always playing guitar a bit alongside that, and I've only really taken to seriously playing guitar more so maybe in like the last 4 years.
Right. Okay.
You know, I actually bought my first, like in lockdown, I actually bought my first proper, like a good, decent Fender Strat, because I'm like, I finally need one. It's literally been like 10 years of playing guitar. What are you doing with your life?
Oh, cool, man.
And then,
Everyone has a guitar at home.
Yeah, exactly, man. But like getting a proper decent guitar, it's been great. And then, so singing and playing bass probably kind of came up first, and then guitar sort of in the background, but doing more so of that nowadays to be a bit more multi-instrumental. And then started playing double bass at university when I was about 19.
I feel like I've seen you play the double bass before then.
I think there was one at school,
Yes.
school, and I restrung it, and I wouldn't advise anyone to do that because it was a horrible evening spent trying to. I mean, there's so much tension in that gigantic thing, like it, and I just didn't. And also, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. Like,
Fair,
so
fair.
the kind of the coming together of like it being a horrendous instrument to restring, regardless of what you're doing, regardless of whether you know what you're doing or not. And the fact that I didn't know what I was doing, those two things together didn't make a good evening. So yeah, but anyway, I did try and play that double bass. It was really horrible. It was impossible to play, but that's fine. And then I got given one by a friend of mine for like 75 quid.
Nice.
In university, because he knocked up his girlfriend and he had to sell off all his stuff. That's another story. But I ended up taking it and giving it a good setup with a string shop in Bushey.
What did you do in university?
I did. Sorry, I'm jumping way ahead. I did a popular music degree at the University of Liverpool.
So from 12 until essentially your entire education career has been revolved around music, because I know you did GCSE music.
Yeah, man.
You did A-level.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think that it kind of, I was good at music alongside other stuff, and it wasn't really until I got to sort of age like 16 or 17 that I started doing some paid shows, and I was like, oh, people can actually make money from this. This is
Right.
nuts, and I really enjoy it. I mean, I think my first gig was for like 20 quid in my dad's mate's back garden for his birthday or something, which is funny that like I'd kill for a gig like that right now, but you know, that's just life, isn't it? But yeah, and I think that it emerged as like a professional possibility sort of age 16, 17, and then it kind of came time to like apply to university. So I was like, actually, I think I'll probably do music at university. Because,
If you weren't
you know,
making music, what would you have done?
I don't know, man.
Is it really? Are you that far into music? You're like, I have no plan B.
I mean, I do. At the time, I was doing other subjects. I studied physics and I studied like philosophy and ethics, and that was quite interesting.
Right.
So I'd have either been destined to like a life of physics or a life of like endless academia as of thinking about stuff for years and years as a philosopher.
Fair.
But I think music just kind of, and it's so weird to think about this. Like often people are discouraged from making music, and like, oh, it's not a viable career, you know, that kind of stuff. But my folks were really encouraging, and that was great. And I did sort of genuinely see it as like a viable career option quite early on, which I think was kind of weird.
Because it is a very viable career.
It is 100%, definitely. And I think that people are discouraged from it and, you know, told to like, oh no, think of something serious or like have a fallback. But
you haven't had one. I mean, well, you have a degree.
I have a music degree, which means I can teach, and I teach quite a lot. And so I've been teaching people since my second year of uni. I started taking on a couple of students, and then I've kind of carried that on pretty much like continuously. I've always taught.
Nice.
So that's, I guess, my plan B was like teaching. I mean, I kind of thought maybe classroom teaching could have been like a plan B. Always like the idea of being a teacher in a classroom. But I think it's this thing with like an arts focused life like that. You kind of have to go for it and see if it works.
Absolutely.
Kind of thing. And that's sort of what I've done up to now, and luckily it has. So yeah, there we go.
So you massively undersell it. You've had, we spoke about, I found this out maybe 30 minutes ago. You got Christmas number one.
Yeah, but it's like a joke of the career thing. I mean, it is funny.
I think
it is cool. I mean,
it's certainly cool.
I got the trophy. It means something. But like,
and then what else?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of projects have you been taking on? So we're recording this it's September 2020.
Yeah.
So I'd suppose
September 2020.
February 2020.
Man, it still feels like March. March has lasted like 6 months. Oh Christ. Sorry. So
I'm surprised I made it past January, honestly.
Yeah, big time.
So
yeah,
January 31st is the last day I remember remembering the date.
Yeah, Brexit Day. So
yeah,
you know,
fair.
Lame. Yeah, you were saying.
So what kind of stuff are you getting into post uni?
Well, I've kind of like there's this funny thing of being I'm kind of dumbing down the whole session musician thing because that's not the exclusivity of what I do, but it's sort of what I'm striving to do, right? So as the kind of main thing. So playing with different artists and touring and playing on records is kind of the ultimate goal of like myself being a musician. So the first, I was
like solely like not playing exclusively with anyone or like going on tours and then on to the next one.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If like Beyonce comes a knocking, you know, I'm going to do that one gig for the rest of my life.
Beyonce, if you're listening.
Yeah, exactly.
He's here.
Hello. Hello. But or you know, whoever it might be, and I've got friends right now who are kind of playing for like that single artist and will probably play for them for years, and that's enough to pay their way, and that's amazing. And that would be great. I'd love to pursue that kind of thing in my career. But I kind of I came out of uni and just wanted to sort of tour and wanted to play with original artists, and I did that. But during uni, what I was doing was just a lot of like the bread and butter gigs. So I'd play like, you know, I'd in my last year of uni, I didn't spend one weekend in Liverpool. I was always down to London, stay at my folks, and then stay at my girlfriend, now wife's place, and then would go off and do gigs at the weekend. So I'd kind of come down on a Thursday night, see my wife, and then on Friday, Saturday, go and do gigs. And it would be everything from like, you know, little kind of musical theatre things in London, bar gigs and stuff like that. I did loads of stuff around like West Yorkshire, weirdly, like doing shows around there. Just really random. Like I played every.
Music takes you to very weird parts.
Yeah, man. I played like every pub in Wakefield. Like
what an achievement.
Yeah, big time. Exactly.
It's
yeah.
sad they don't make medals for that.
Exactly. It would be a really, really like unsettlingly boring passport. You know, if you just had every stamp of like, you know, Kirkgate and I can't remember the names of the places without.
It's a passport.
I'm gonna offend northern people if I try and like make up like northern sounding places. So I'll probably just leave that. But Criggleston, that's definitely a place. That's a real place. So I did loads of that.
That's weird because it doesn't sound like a real place.
It doesn't sound like a real place, but it is a real place.
Nice.
Just like Stone and Rock and Leek.
Those are things.
Pity Me. That's a place as well. Yeah, it's a place. Anyway.
Why do you know these things?
Just because I drive, baby. I drive all the time.
You should stop typing words into your sat nav.
Yeah,
my
yeah,
friend.
exactly. Yeah, for sure. I wonder if this is a place. Let's drive there.
I feel like just okay, Google, pity me, and
Yeah.
it just takes you.
That's more of a cry for help than a place. But yeah. Anyway, so I'm massively digressing. So I was during uni in my last year and a bit in my second year. I was going and playing loads of shows, different people, and it was everything from, like I was talking about, to just playing in pubs, to like you know, covers gigs in holiday parks, playing in Butlins, like playing weddings and.
What's it
and
like? How do you even introduce yourself to that scene?
I just was very, very lucky to kind of. Everything. I've never had a website, and I've never. I obviously do social media and I post stuff on that, and some stuff has come from that, funnily enough. But I've never had a website. I've never really like focused on sort of networking, quote unquote. I've kind of just been very lucky to like be able to make friends with a lot of people, and then people have thrown me bones and opportunities. So like the whole like you know the whole West Yorkshire touring circuit, to give it for want of a better name, it came just because one of the guys I lived with at university, he was a drummer in this band and they needed a bass player, and I was in the right place at the right time and they got me in, and that was that. And then from that, I kind of have met other people who I still work with in other guises randomly, and you know, kind of around the country. There were offers coming in for different gigs and stuff for a long time after that, just from people I met along the way doing that, making friends there. And then I met a guy in London. I was in an originals band for about 10 years.
Wow.
That was called, we went through different names. We were called Pauper Kings, and then we were called Straight On Till Morning, and then Seven Spies, and they're still going, but I ended up leaving them last year just because I didn't really see my life going down the kind of whole originals band route anymore, and that's totally fair. But in that time...
So an originals band is essentially a band that you make yourself and try and sell records for.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, you know, you are the sole creative producers in that, and it's like, you know, you're doing it just for the love of it. And I kind of fortunately found that I get love of playing music from every avenue of music I'm in at the moment, where I make money. So it's kind of combining that is what led me to kind of make that decision to not do that band anymore. But anyway, being in that band, I met a guy called Johnny Lucas, who now lives in Nashville. Amazing artist. Like, I've never seen a guy drink so much and be able to play and sing so well still. Man, that guy.
Achievements or achievements?
The guy's, he's made us something else. Again, like, just fortunate timing. Like, his bass player had just left his band and he needed a bass player, so I ended up doing all his gigs, and we did like, you know, 2 gigs a week for about a year and a half. And then through that, again, just met more and more different people. And there's people that I've met off the back of working with him that I still play with nowadays, and people that I've toured with. But anyway, so that was kind of like, as a musician, the reason I kind of hesitate to say session musician thing is like, you know, when I'm more kind of inclined to say freelance, is like pretty much all musicians I know have some way of like making their bread and butter,
right,
from gigging or maybe another avenue. But let's talk about just gigging musicians, right? So the guys that gig and only play music live for their money, very few of them are just touring with originals artists, right? Or just playing in their own band. Okay. If they're doing that, I'm the biggest fan of doing that, and I think it's amazing, and it's like great.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people just aren't, and that's totally cool as well. So I've kind of built my life on that sort of bedrock of different career stuff by like, I am touring with different artists and I am playing original shows, but also just a lot of the time I'm just playing parties and weddings and bar gigs and whatever other random stuff that comes up, like mimes for different companies or whatever. If they just need a guitar player or a bass player to stand in and play some tunes or something. Done that kind of thing. So that was kind of the important thing for me, was to like have that established. And luckily I met a couple of people that gave me enough work that I could kind of have that as my starting point and go, okay, I now want to direct myself into the session scene and the original scene. I'm now going to go and do that because I've got my work that I can just kind of have on tap whenever I need it, right?
Right.
So, yeah, that was important to establish that first and foremost. And then I graduated in summer 2014, but I got my first proper tour through. My first shows I played abroad were like really random. I played with a satirical musical comedy about the Eurozone crisis in Germany. So that was as fun as it sounds. It was cool. It was like cool. I was living the dream. I was like, I'm in Berlin playing music. What's going on?
Nice.
And so I did that while I was still at uni, and then my first big proper tour.
How did you land that?
Just literally knowing a guy who knows a guy, like Phil Mitchell. Which is funny his real name is, but...
okay, so I thought you were about to make some crazy EastEnders.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yes, I've worked with Steve McFadden.
Phil, pianist.
Phil, yes. No, you know
Pete.
You know Pete.
I know Pete.
Who is his brother.
Yes.
So you know Pete Mitchell, his brother Phil. I met him through like different circumstances of like... I mean, you can always trace the epicenter of it. So the drummer of my original band that I was in at the time was Straight Until Morning or Paul Kings, I can't remember. But he introduced me to Pete Mitchell and got me on some gigs with him. And then I met his brother through that. And his brother was like, I've got this tour. It's happening, a few shows in Germany, a few shows in the UK. Do you want to come and do it? Just bass and piano. It was really random, but it was a great experience. I loved it. And so, again, like landing that gig just through making some friends on some gigs.
So this is crazy. So you said something a little early on, which is like, I don't have a website. I don't really do the socials. And that you are purely network-based.
Yeah.
I guess, do you know anyone that isn't purely network-based?
I think that there probably back in the day, it was way more about like having a website. I mean, like way back in the day, it was literally like, you know, you look in the phone book and be like, right, guitarists, you know, and you'd have like a list of people,
right?
Or you know, people would post themselves as being available in like rehearsal studios, and you just call that number for a guitar player.
That still happens.
It still happens, but less so now. But it does still happen, and that's kind of how that would work. And then I think the website thing would definitely happen for some musicians. But yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, the majority of, but I think a lot of.
Especially the network you must be surrounded by. I'm assuming it's mostly network based.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, it's kind of just about making friends and playing music well. And if you can do that, then you're gonna just kind of carry on building momentum. That's what I did that's what I've done for a long time, and it's just worked out really well based on that, I think.
How does practicing there's so much going on. There's tours, constantly out. So how does getting better at what you do fit into all of that?
I mean, you can practice on the gig, as it were. Like you can try new stuff on a gig, and I think actually a lot of what I've learned as a bass player and as a musician in general has just been learned by kind of playing live and trying stuff out. And,
do you have an example?
Yeah, I mean, like. I guess it was kind of like you want to have low pressure situations, right?
Okay.
So I think I started doing a lot more backing vocals.
What does that look like?
So I started doing a lot more backing vocals alongside playing bass on shows where maybe I wasn't like the primary backing vocalist, and I could just have a mic as well. And I would kind of, while playing live, I would practice singing rhythms over the top of whatever the bass part I was doing at the time. Right?
Okay.
So that's the kind of way of doing that, because it's not so important that you kind of mess it up. If you do mess it up, it's not so important. But you still have the capacity to get good and get kind of use that as actual physical kinetic practice. I've always found that I've practiced better by like going out and doing stuff.
Okay.
It's like, I mean, you can't really sit and practice jazz.
Yes.
Right?
Because it's so improvised.
Because it's improvised based. I mean, everyone's working off like the same sheet, arguably, but the only way you're going to learn to play in a jazz band is to like play in a jazz band, right? So I remember like 4 years ago just playing these like 30 quid gigs on a Wednesday night with other amazing jazz musicians and just getting my ass handed to me and being like, this is great. This is like this is jazz. This is learning jazz.
Right.
And from then I've kind of taken stuff through other times I've played on little jazz gigs. I don't do much jazz stuff, but when it does come around, that sort of kinetic learning did really kind of come into play. But I do practice in the traditional sense as well. You know, I'll sit and just kind of play certain stuff.
Will you
and,
call it practice, or are you just playing because you love playing?
I think it's a mix of both.
But do you sit there and think, I should probably keep it?
I should probably do that more than I do. But I think that I mean, yeah, I will just sit there and just practice scales and different finger shapes and stuff like that. And like, but then actually a lot of I think you can practice so well and so effectively and so kinetically by just learning songs.
Right.
Like I know, I just having done loads of gigs, I just know hundreds of songs. And there's just something to gain from learning a new song and being like, oh, there's a new technique there, or there's a new way of understanding harmony there, or there's a new way of understanding the role of the bass there.
Explain the process of learning a song.
So I learned a couple of songs today. Okay. For example. I learned...
so how does that even start? What's step one of learning a song?
So we obviously got to listen to it first, and then... so I'll probably, if I'm playing with originals artists, this is probably the best example of how to learn tunes. So what I'll do is if I'm learning an original set of songs I've never heard before, I will put them on and just listen to them in the background of whatever stuff I'm doing. So if I'm driving, I'll put the album on and just have it on repeat as much as I can stand for like that journey. If I'm working out or something, I'll do the same. And just listening to tunes over and over and over, just really get like it kind of gets them ingrained in your head subconsciously. So when you actually come to consciously learning them, you've actually got half the information there already without really knowing it.
Do you sleep listening to music?
No, I used to, but I can't really do it now.
Because I've heard that's a great way to learn.
Right, okay. Yeah, I can imagine it is. It's just not worked for me personally. I think that for what I'm doing, I need to be like doing something where my mind is active and is like susceptible to taking in information, but it's not so active that like I will get distracted from the music itself. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Like I've never been able to, since I've been a musician, I've never been able to find myself. I've never been able to find myself. I've never found myself. Good. We're going to start this again. Since being a musician, I've never found myself able to listen to music while reading. I just can't do it.
Reading a book?
Reading a book. I can't do it. Reading an article or a book or anything, I cannot do it at all.
Because you separate and start listening to...
Yeah, I just kind of concentrate on the music too much. I just can't do it. Unless it's like... Unless I was in a bar and it was like deliberately background music and I'm reading something. It's like... I can't separate the two because I'm so honed in on like understanding music and trying to learn music.
Can you casually listen to music?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think that's kind of... And I can detach myself from it and still really enjoy it as a consumer of music, rather than just kind of a producer or a performer of it. So yeah, I can detach myself from music, but I think like I'm saying, because my mind is actively trying to read, I can't separate the actively listening to music and the actively trying to read. Yeah. Whereas if it's like, you know, if you're in the gym and you're like working out, you're kind of trying to get out of your brain a bit, aren't you?
Yeah, quite literally.
So like,
whereas this is focusing on
exactly. So you're passive to what's going on around you, and I think that passive allows me to be subconsciously drawing in the music. So then that kind of gives you like a mental bedrock of the tunes you have to learn, and then, you know, as soon as you sit down, and then the next stage is to sit down and start playing along to stuff and trying to work it out. And then you kind of already know where you're going because you've heard the changes in your head enough, you know?
So this is a really... I don't think I've said this out loud. Do you hear music like language? That's the easiest way that I can describe it.
It's a big question. I don't know. Do I hear music like language? I think so. I think it is a thing. They're sort of one and the same, aren't they, really? I mean, I was actually thinking about this the other day, like... You've just made me now think about it, but I also did think about this the other day. So on a drive home, me and some friends were playing a game, like just to pass the time, like one of those games where you're like, you know, I did this and I brought along something beginning with A, something beginning with B, and it like goes round and everyone tries to remember it, and by the end you can remember. You've got 26 things you have to like list back, otherwise you get frozen out, right? And I could probably still do it now.
Yes, because have learned sheet music because I've got used to this process of learning and hearing stuff. And also, like, you know, by the time you get to the,
the first things come up 26 times, the second things come up 25 times, the third, and so on, right? So just that repetition of language, right, is the same as repetition of music. It's just getting enough association between the things in your brain and that repetition that you can kind of draw it in subconsciously and like regurgitate it later. And it's easier with language because like, if you say something, all I have to do is say it back to you, right? That's and then I've replicated.
Well, it's a beautiful question for you because I think you are one of the most fluent. Like you can hear and play back.
Right. Yeah.
So you could call an answer with you can do jazz.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess doing jazz, a bit of a weird like layered thing there. But what I mean is that you could say something and I can just say the same thing as you.
Yes.
Right. Whereas like if I hear something, there's more variables that go into actually reproducing it. So it's like, what instrument is it on? Is it the same as mine? What pitch is it at? Like, where is it on the fretboard? How am I going to play it to make it sound like that? Or how am I going to play it to make it sound best for what I'm doing? Like, there's a lot more variables.
Right.
So in one sense, is music like language? Yes, because of like the kind of the memorability of it and the repetition element and stuff, and like recall. But like maybe different because you're doing it in different ways. You're like there's more variables to go through in terms of reproducing it.
Right.
I think.
Fair. Do you have a favorite genre?
No, I don't think so. I think I like everything, and I think you ask a boring person what music they like, and they say I like everything, and it's because they're trying to evade the question. But I don't know. I mean, like if music is good, then I'll listen to it.
So, is there
There's
anything
not much I
about
don't
music? Like, let's talk about all music. Are there things that attract you to a certain record or a certain style? Like,
I like it when I like it when things are kind of musically pushing a boundary, but are still like very likable. So I'm not really down with like massively self-indulgent stuff a lot of the time.
Okay.
I think for me, there's always this whole idea, and I've had this, and you have this as a bass player, and you have this as a lot of kind of good musicians, but like, if musical content serves the song, then I'm all over it. That's great. So, the problem is of like listening to bass all the time is sometimes it genuinely ruins my experience of a song. If I'm listening to the bass and it's like back in the day, this 70s session guy is like all over the place, all over the neck. And he's just kind of like, I'm just like, you're just ruining the song, dude. Like, and for me, like there's some old school pop tunes I can think of that do that. But I think that when things all work together to serve the song and make something really kind of a complete totality of like good song, lyrics and music, that's kind of what I'm into the most, And
is there an environment that you, and it's a two-pronged question, is there an environment that you prefer listening to music in? And is there an environment that you prefer playing music in? Reading is obviously not one of them.
Yeah, exactly. No reading. I can't read. That's the real bombshell. I like listening to music. If a new record has come out, I really like listening to it while I'm walking. Just because, again, it's like another passive activity where I can really take it in. Or while I'm driving, I really like listening to music as well.
Got you.
So basically, passive movement.
I imagine you don't like playing music in either of those scenarios.
So so if I'm walking, running, driving, walking the dog, basically any passive motion, I really enjoy listening to music alongside of it. I think it gives me kind of like gives me a chance to like really absorb and appreciate the album. If a new album comes out, that I really want to listen to. Is that how you
listen to music, by album?
Usually, yeah. Well, actually, no, both. To be honest, like I've got playlists that I've made. Of my running playlist is based just like crushing riffs that just get me through. But also, I mean, what have I listened to recently? Like the new Leanne LaHavas album, which is awesome. I listened to that like twice in a row. The newest.
Why would you like? What makes you want to listen to something again and again and again?
I think just I like to listen to it twice in a row to be like, is this a grower? Maybe I'll find more in the second time of listening, because I think you do. Like,
so you give music a chance?
Yeah, man, big time. I think more so than some other people. I think like I mean, it's another conversation, but the whole way that we kind of are almost losing the value of music culture is like we're not as willing to take a chance. Like, I'll gladly spend £10 on a record if I like 2 songs from it and risk the idea that I might not like the rest of it.
Right.
But I don't think people will do that. And in a way you can understand that because, you know...
Well, see, I'm super guilty of just... You on Spotify?
I am, yeah, of course.
So Discover Weekly, for example, I just skip through records. I listen to the first... I listen to the first 5 seconds, and it's a really bad way to gauge a record.
Right, yeah.
And then I'll go, okay, cool, 25%, 50%, 75%.
Yeah.
Listen, and you know, have a 10-second listen at each of those sections.
Yeah.
And if there's a drop, maybe I'll go find the drop and be like, is this a good section?
Yeah, of course. But I think that's a very valid form of music consumption nowadays. Like,
yeah, you know, it's not. I actually have to stop myself doing it.
Yeah, but all you're doing is just buying into the platform that you're offered, right? What's wrong with that? I think, and also like there are musicians that I've played for that like got to where they are because of Spotify. You know?
Yes.
And there's some that have kind of like I think
if you guys were in the real world, you'd be nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, it's also like it's you know the older guys kind of Spotify has a harder time because they're so used to making money specifically from their records. But the young guys that are coming along, Spotify is great because their music's straight out there, and they can just tour, and they've always got something to tour because they put something new on Spotify and then you just tour it.
Yep.
You know, so yeah.
Do you want to explain that concept, by the way, like touring versus making music?
As in for me personally, or for like other people?
Both.
Well, so I did my first proper tour when I was like 20. And I mean, touring is like I've always toured as like a side, you know, a sideman, like never my own music.
Yep.
I don't really write my own music apart from like with the band that I used to be in. I did write stuff together, but it was still a case of like him bringing us the songs.
Writing you're composing the whole record, or writing as in you're writing your
as in like I write my parts, but like I guess that is a form of creativity. But in terms of like, I think I should probably establish something the way I think about music. So for me, it's like you've got song and you've got music, right?
Okay.
And the song is like the key elements of a piece of music that if they were changed, then like the whole kind of integrity of a tune would change, right? So like I don't know, think of something simple. Think of something like Billie Jean, right?
Okay.
Michael Jackson. So that song is so kind of ingrained that like it's probably got to have a disco beat to it.
Yep.
Right. It's probably got to have the bass line, like a repetitive kind of key bass thing, and it's probably got to have the lyrics.
Yeah.
But like beyond that, you could change a lot of the tune and you'd still have the same song. Right? You could change the arrangement.
You know, I had a really embarrassing moment
on
Spotify 2 years ago, and I got called out by 2 people on it.
Uh-huh.
I could hear, and the only reason I liked it, and I've got to put a disclaimer, the only reason I liked it is because I could hear it.
Right.
I got really intrigued that I could hear Billie Jean in an S Club 7 record.
Right.
I can't remember what it was. And it was the same. I'm like, this is Billie Jean. You're just playing me Billie Jean and singing.
It's Don't Stop Moving, isn't
Don't
it?
Stop Moving.
Yeah, I just thought
I
of it now.
pretended not to know the name.
Yeah, good.
So you bought that one.
No,
out.
full credit. That was the first album that I owned. Was
Really?
S Club 7, yeah.
Fair. I think
shame.
mine was mine
But
was
they were
busted.
great. They were great musicians playing on those records, man.
Yes, very much
Back in the day,
so.
you know. That's the Sessionistas coming out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, how
There you
many
go.
nicknames are there for session musicians?
I don't know.
Every time you mention them one tonight, it's a different one. Sessiony.
Sessionistas. I don't know. Just anything with sibilance in it.
So back to the point. So
Yeah,
you're
sorry, back to the
song
point.
versus music.
So yeah, song versus music. So like I'm saying, like the music is like the sort of the changeable elements of like a tune, like those bits in Billie Jean that aren't what I said. So, I mean, if you think about like,
Which is why a remix could exist.
why a remix can exist, exactly, yeah, and you still need those integral like immutable parts of the song to exist for it to be the song. But like the music is what can change, and so
I really love that about dubstep, that it just doesn't sound like the original record at all. I'm like, you just took that sound and crushed it. Like, this isn't a remix anymore, dude.
But that is something to be said for like sampling
Yes.
and reproducing that, and you know that's a part where the song becomes a new song because you are taking something out of a song, and you've stripped away so many elements from that previous song that you make it into a new song with new music, right? So that's that coming into play. I mean, it's probably like thinking about a cover and the original. Do you know that recent one, Kygo and Whitney Houston doing Higher Love, right? You know?
Yes,
Think
yes.
about it, there must be a higher love.
Yeah.
Right? So that original song, Steve Winwood, right? And they've kind of, they're very different versions, but like a lot of the musical elements have remained the same in order to keep the song the same, right? Because they've both got the same verse, chorus as each other.
So
They've
the
both got the
song
same
is
melody.
remained, but the music's changed.
The music's changed, exactly, yeah, which makes it into a new version. So the song's the same. It's like
they could have changed the tempo and the music would have still.
The tempo is different. Like it's, one is like, bring me a higher love, kind of around there, isn't it? And then like, bring me a higher love. So it's like, it's probably like 5 or 10 BPM faster. And it's also got a different kind of groove to it. It's more of the sort of Kygo kind of straight ahead clubby thing, whereas there's a lot more swing in Winwood's version. But my whole point is the swing is not, for example, the swing is not what makes that song song. It's not an integral part. It can be taken away, right? And also, like Steve Winwood's thing has got like 3 bridges in it. If you listen to it, it's
so
like,
for you in particular, is on a lot of records because you hear the bass. Is the bass what makes a song for you?
Well, it can, it can't, it could, and it couldn't be. It literally depends on the tune.
Yes, Schrodinger's bass.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Yeah, Schrodinger's bass. It's like, like Billie Jean's a good example. It's such like you hear that bass line, you know what tune it is. That's why it's
regardless
like
of
part
if
of the song.
7 is started playing.
Exactly, yeah, big time. Regardless of pop band plagiarism. I mean, something like Rapper's Delight, the bass line in that.
Yes. Okay.
Right. That's so integral to that tune. That it's very recognizable. But
so I think like a great example for any hip hop, like Still Dre. That's the song. If it goes, like I've heard so many versions of it. Where I'm like, you're still using. It's still music. But I know what song.
Yeah, of course.
That's how you're saying. I know what song you've taken that from to make your music.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I mean, take something like I'm trying to think of kind of changeable examples, like. The Seed by The Roots.
Oh yes,
right.
I
don't
Roots.
ask her for much these days. Right. In the verse, the bass is like bom bom bum bum bum.
Yep.
Bum 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 boo doo doom. Right. Cool, but it could easily be different. So it's not a song element. It's like a music element. Right. So when I'm talking about like not writing songs, I don't write songs. I do write music, right? As a bass player. And sometimes as a guitar player if I get called in a session to do that as well.
Right. Okay, and that's why that difference is important.
They're very important. I think that's also what distinguishes session musicians as well. Like they're writing music, but they're not necessarily writing songs, right?
They're right. Okay, that makes perfect sense, because it ties into the way that you're essentially living.
Yeah.
To view things like that. That's so interesting.
And it's also like reflected on like a band like say Biffy Clyro, who's I listened to their latest record as well recently. I was going to talk about that, but it's the way they've always written it is songs by Simon Neil. He's a lead singer and guitarist.
Right.
Music by Biffy Clyro. So the whole idea is that he.
So this isn't like a theory of your own. This is a shared amongst.
It must be, yeah. And I think I've.
Because
maybe people haven't conceptualized it in sort of a specific way as I have. Like
we have the industry version, like mechanical rights versus recording.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. There's always and whether you get like performer credit versus actual songwriting, like publishing versus performance royalties.
Everybody wants some motherfucking credit, man.
Exactly, man. Big time. We've got so many different arms of it, but it's like, it's literally like your PRS versus your PPL. Like your PRS is about the song, your PPL is about the music, right?
Yes.
So there's that distinction. I think you have to look into that, and almost you've got to sometimes you've got to say, I'm going to do one or the other. Some people do both.
Because you can't have this whole conversation when people ask, oh, eventually we're going to run out of chords. I'm like, no.
Yeah, exactly. Not if there's more musics. But yeah, so that's how I see it. But yeah, so old band I was in, guy was writing songs, and then I was writing music to accompany that. That's the way I was seeing it, right?
Okay.
So yeah, there you go.
That's the difference. And so where do you enjoy playing music the most?
Oh yeah, we're back on that. I mean, there's some great venues that are just really fun to play. I mean, touring is probably where I enjoy playing music the most, just because it's the whole thing of like being on the road, playing in different venues all the time in different countries.
Yeah.
Staying in different hotels is really fun. The hangs are great. Like if you're with a good road crew, it's so fun to hang out with people and just play music, and also because you're playing original music, and there is a different thing to like playing other people's original music that is less common than there is like just playing covers. You know, that is a different thing because it's more kind of like more unique and I guess it feels like there's maybe a bit more artistry in what I'm doing there than if I'm just playing, you know, Don't Stop Believing another time.
Do you feel like an artist?
Do I feel like an artist? I don't know, man. I think so.
Because you make stuff.
Yeah, I make stuff. I guess that's the thing, isn't it? Like, a lot of artists are just reproducing stuff, right? And that's not really anything to be ashamed of. That's just the way that art works a lot of the time. Like photographers and painters and are only kind of, maybe not painters when they're coming up with completely original stuff, but like photographers, you're capturing what you see, right? You know, if you're remixing, that's still art. And it's like, you know, you're just remixing what you see or what you get given as an original song and make something new out of it. Same for if you're audio engineering or mixing, those are all art forms. So I guess, yeah, by playing bass, I do feel like an artist. And also there's a particular way that I play bass, I guess, that people hire me for. Because I've got onto certain gigs and been in certain bands just because of the way that I personally play bass and sing, maybe, you know.
So you've mentioned singing a few times, and your singing voice, albeit what I heard from the head voice there, is completely different to your actual voice.
Yeah, right, okay.
So first question for you, which is my fun Mythbusters, do you believe singing is a talent or a skill?
I think it's both. Whoa. I think that like it's a skill up to a point. Yep. Like there is definitely that people are definitely able to go from absolutely nothing to like being able to sing, right? But it takes like inherent talent, I think, to be like that next level of like, you know, I think there's some people I know that have had singing lessons for years and they can like hold a tune, but they're just never like a singer. Like, I mean, they're not a musician, you know, they're just someone who sings. And that's fine. That's totally cool for them.
They're making music, not songs.
I guess so. Not really thought about it like that. I think, no, I don't know. I would remove that distinction for this part of the conversation because I think that it's more about like, I think it's more just about like, I think then you're kind of getting into another separate thing, which is like, are you someone who plays an instrument or sings, or are you a musician? Right? I think if you have...
Well, I think there's a difference.
Yeah, I think you can definitely...
The ability to play is only as useful as what you can do with it.
Exactly, and that's a manifestation of skills. But in terms of manifestation of like talent, I think that's what takes you to be a musician. You know? Like my brother is a great guitar player, but he's not a musician because like he just doesn't nurture that part of his learning. Like he learns, he plays guitar a lot and he does create stuff and he does write guitar music and stuff, but he's not a musician with a huge diversity of skills able to kind of go out and just slip into any context like all the musicians I know can. Like, and he's great, and that's not putting him down, so that's just not what he's kind of geared himself towards musically.
Of course, like to be a musician, you have to want to be a musician. It's not like I just solidly I hit my chair and I just literally dropped a foot without realizing it.
He's disappeared.
I'm not the tallest guy to begin with, so that really just knocked me goddamn.
I'm gonna sip this. Hang on.
So your brother plays.
Yeah.
Do your parents?
No.
So where did the music? You started at 12. Mm-hmm. Curiosity obviously kicked in.
Yeah.
And your parents were very nurturing towards it.
Well, my cousin is still he still plays a lot of music. Still plays a lot of guitar and bass and piano and stuff. He's not a professional, but he's you know, he still plays a lot of music and loves music. Right. And he was the guy that brought a guitar around to my house first and was like, hey, check this out, man, and just taught me a couple of riffs. So that was kind of where I think it began from there. that was sort of my first access into like any kind of musical instrument.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair. And then there's always just been support in the house for it.
Yeah, man, big time. I think you need that, otherwise it sort of won't work out really. And you need support from your peers in anything you do, really, don't you?
Yeah. So I want to move on to where we are right now in life. Which is, I mean, there's nothing live.
Yeah.
That's one thing for sure. What's it like?
Well, it's weird, isn't it? I mean, I've done all right, like in terms of gigs. I mean, I've had like since sort of lockdown began, I've had like 4 recording sessions, all with the same artist. An artist called Lap that I'm working with at the moment, who's very cool. Just recording stuff. He's decided to write this big double album about the village village he's from in Italy, which is cool. So I've been recording.
Is his music in Italian?
I think he sings some of it in Italian. But he's like he's a British guy whose family comes from
Do you have to play your bass in Italian?
I have to, exactly, yeah, for sure. Lots of hand gestures. So I've been playing bass and double bass on that and doing some vocals as well. And that was like, I did that like 4 sessions over lockdown. And then in terms of gigs, I did like, I've done like 1, 2, 3.
When have you ever been able to count your gigs on
Exactly,
one hand?
I know, yeah. It's weird, isn't it? 1, 2, 3.
Definitely less than 5.
I don't know. Is it more than 5 by now? I think it might be. 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I've got like, so I've done like 7 gigs and like
in 6
4
months.
recordings in since my last gig was March the 15th. So and my first one back was June the 24th.
You put me on the
so
spot.
I had
how
like
many months ago that was.
Right. So I had just over 3 months off any playing.
Okay.
And then my first proper gig, I guess, back was like the 14th of July. So it was nearly 4 months to the day. So, which for some people, like that's not really that much to like not play a gig in that kind of time. But for me, I did 8 gigs the week before lockdown.
Right.
So like I'm so used to playing all the time.
I've always known you to be very active.
Yeah,
It's a full time in the way that someone will turn up to the office 8 hours a day. You will be playing 8 hours, if not more, a day. And so, where are you at right now?
Right now, well, I mean, so there's obviously it's just kind of waiting, isn't it? Like it's waiting until like we can relax social distancing and like go back to kind of having as many shows as we were, because like a lot of
Do you think the shows are coming back?
Well, I think that unfortunately we're being given a bit of a false sense of security about it at the moment, because like I am seeing some of my mates doing gigs at the moment, and that's great, and I'm doing a couple, and that's wicked. But if I'm honest, I don't think it's going to come back in the full force it was for a long time.
Years.
Well, I don't know, actually. I think it literally just depends on like vaccines, doesn't it? Now we're getting scientific. Or it depends, or whether one country in the world is like, you know what? We've done enough to mitigate this virus. We've decided we're just going to try and carry on and keep some social distancing measures in place.
That's us.
Sort of us, isn't it? Yeah, but it's in a sort of like a depressingly unarticulated way. Just move my body.
Because remember, they were like herd immunity, and we were like, no, and they were like, okay.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Whether they've been pushing that from the start, I don't know. It's an interesting thing, isn't it? But so where am I at? So I've always taught, like I was saying, right? So I picked up my first students in 2013. I've always taught. When I graduated uni, I started doing quite a lot of teaching, and then I went down to like a very small amount.
Right.
And then over lockdown, luckily, I carried on teaching. Are we pausing for a bit, are we?
No. So last thing you said
fine.
was over lockdown, like... Sorry, I thought I'd do it sneaky one.
Yeah, nice.
Start the cameras.
Cool.
So over lockdown, you continued teaching.
So over lockdown, I kind of carried on that teaching, and luckily I was already doing it, because the thing is, like, I mean, if you looked at my Facebook wall at like end of March, it was like every musician was like, all my gigs are gone, I'm now a music teacher. Literally like everyone and their mums was a music teacher all of a sudden. And fine. And I know some people did pick up some students, and that's great. But
the quality of learning is a real concern then.
I don't know. I think that there's a lot of musicians who haven't ever taught before who could give quite a good insight. That like maybe into kind of maybe in like teach it in a way that sort of people haven't really learned in before, because they're kind of much more practical musicians who previously would just gig. And I saw some people doing teacher be like, that's gonna be really interesting to get a lesson from you, that kind of thing. But luckily I was already doing it, so I didn't really have to change myself too much. I kind of just picked up all the teaching I was already doing, and some of it's through schools and institutions, and that just all moves online. And some of it was my own private students, and I kind of encouraged them to move online. And I'm actually still teaching them each week online at the moment. And so I kind of, that's sort of seen me through. And then obviously the government grant was like enough to like survive, and that's cool. I mean, it's a bit, I don't think it's the best targeting of funding, but I'm grateful that like I've had like a relatively steady income based on that and the teaching I was doing.
Right.
Whereas some people have had nothing, like this kind of this like 3 million excluded people. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
Which is
everywhere.
mad. Yeah, man. I mean, like one of my main wedding bands that I play in is like there's 6 of us. We're 5 instrumentalists and a sound guy.
Yep.
The sax player is the one that runs the band and owns the limited company. Now, because of the way that he was encouraged to pay himself by the government, which was to take dividends out of his limited company, it means that he has received no government support, even though it was like he did what they told him to do. Whereas we've all got our grants. So we're literally like our sax player's got no money. How has this happened? Like, this is really weird. It's the bit like the whole thing of the government told everyone to buy diesel cars, and then suddenly they're the worst thing in the world.
Yes.
Which is definitely true. Like, I mean, I had a diesel and I sold it. I'm eco. I don't know. Just for the camera. It's all good, guys. Don't worry about it. XR. Extinction Rebellion. Not saying deals is good, but it was funny how that kind of U-turn happened.
Yeah, for sure.
And that same thing has happened. It's left a lot of people behind. But anyway, had my grant, and then luckily got thrown a bone by someone who actually I met on doing those 30 quid jazz gigs 4 years ago. The guitarist who did that was like, hey man, I've moved up north and there's a school in Bushy called Emmanuel College. You probably remember Emmanuel College?
I do remember Emmanuel College.
Yeah. Near where we went to school. And I'm going to be their new guitar and bass and ukulele teacher. So I got offered that job. And it's like, I'm like, that's amazing, because it's like, some of the only stuff that's kind of kept going through the pandemic guaranteed is like, key workers, education, and like grocery workers and stuff like that. Like, and so to have one of those jobs that's still music based is like great. Because I'm being completely honest, I've got a mortgage, I've got a baby on the way, I've got my wife and my dog to feed and myself to feed sometimes. I kind of need to make sure.
If there's anything left.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I still need to make sure I'm bringing it home in a way.
Of course.
And I was thinking about whether I get another job or.
Do you ever worry about that before the pandemic? Because music isn't exactly the most secure of.
I actually have never had to worry, and I've been super lucky. For like, I've never been like at a point, maybe right at the beginning. But I think actually I just did loads of teaching.
Right in the beginning, surely you were just young enough that it didn't...
Exactly. It didn't really matter. Like go back and live with your parents after uni, and it doesn't really matter. I think that I've been just super lucky to like always have a lot of offers to play music from different people. And like every time I think that like a month is going to be pretty dry of gigs, I've ended up having loads of stuff come in, and that's just what's happened, obviously apart from now. And I'm kind of, I hope that it will go back to that point, and I'll sort of.
Do you want it to go back? Were you enjoying what you were doing?
I loved what I did, man. Yeah, big time. Like, I mean, but then what I've also loved is spending time with my wife and being at home more in the evenings and being able to see friends in a lot of an easy way.
Is she a musician?
She plays. She played violin for quite a bit.
Nice.
And then played guitar quite a bit. She bought a guitar and just was kind of learning those chords. And she was good when she practiced, but like she just kind of hasn't practiced for a long time, so just hasn't really carried on.
Fair.
But I've really enjoyed kind of being a bit of a homebody, really, and like having evenings and stuff like that. And especially like with the birth of my son in January coming up, it's like I would have to think about like taking time off from playing shows because, like I said to you, an average week in the summer would be like 4 or 5 gigs
a week.
Yeah, 4 or 5 gigs a week, and like they could be all over the country sometimes. And it's great when I get time off and I get to like look after my family and spend money on myself and my wife and stuff. But like it is kind of crummy to be away a lot, right?
Because you travel. Touring is
touring, but also like, if some weeks are like, oh, okay, so I'll get up at 8. I'll go downstairs. I'll go and teach for like a couple of hours. Then I'll come home, be at home for like an hour, and then I'll go out and do a gig, and then I'll come back at like 3 a.m. And that was quite commonplace. And I really love that life. And my wife is so understanding and like so patient with me. That it's unbelievable. Like the grace that she carries herself with me to even have those qualities is like insane. But like it I can't lie, man, it does put a strain on a relationship sometimes.
Of course.
But it's because I made those choices. So I was the one that was like, okay, I'm going to do all the work and basically like, I'm just going to make the dough while the sun shines, as it were.
Yeah.
And just be like, you know what? My whole plan was like make loads of money, and not that I've made loads of money, but like make the money that I can, and then settle down, have a kid, and like slow it down a bit, right? And inadvertently through the pandemic, the thing I'm grateful for, as it's kind of accelerated that decision for me a little bit.
It just made it happen, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, like, we got pregnant during the pandemic because we had loads of time. So
nice.
It was kind of like, okay, I'm now set on this path because gigs will take a lot of time to recover in terms of like, going back to the availability of like between 5 and 8 gigs a week. So
you like slow it down. Sorry, I don't want to like. Have you achieved the place that you want to be in the music industry?
No, not really. I love what I do, but it's not like where I want to end up. But then I'm fortunate that I'm very happy playing all the music I'm playing and playing with all the people I'm playing with.
Right.
So I don't ever feel dissatisfied with my lot. But there's other stuff to get for there. I mean, like, there's people that I've been lucky to play with that I would love to carry on playing with, and like new people that I'd love to play with that my other friends are kind of on gigs with, and I think that would be great. But I think that my main continued aim is just to like be happy making music and making good money from it, and that's what I was doing, to be frank.
Got you.
But I've kind of just thought, you know what, this teaching gig has come up. It would be nice to have some more evenings. It would be nice to have something like that is kind of set solid income no matter what happens. Because like you say, I mean, like, have I ever worried about needing a second job while playing music? No, not until now. And I don't know what the scene next year is going to be like for the music, for touring and playing shows in town and stuff. Right? Yeah, man, of course. Like, no one really knows. And I don't want to be bleak about it, but like the truth is, it is an uncertain future for all of that.
Yeah.
So this will kind of see me
I think
through.
The great thing is no one's ever questioning whether or not, like, you take certain jobs, they're not going to exist in 5 years.
Yeah, right.
They're not going to exist in 20 years.
Yeah,
There's certain jobs like that, like the role of a cab driver won't exist in 100 years. I say hopefully, like potentially.
Maybe, yeah.
Driverless cars and all this kind of stuff.
For sure, yeah.
I don't really ever see
who's going to remote control the Uber, the Uber AI?
It's basically going to be a bunch of kids playing GTA, which is mapped onto the real road.
Yeah, real life. Sick.
But I don't really ever see musicians going out of style.
I mean, there's definitely places where musicians kind of like have not been as necessary. Like, I mean, for me as a bass player, a lot of bass is now programmed on records, and that's a fact. And so they don't need electric bass to be played live, or played on records. And also, like,
but there's something to be said for being in a live venue and having the music played to you.
Yeah, big time. But then even then, I mean, a lot of bands, there are certain gigs that I've kind of lost out on because someone's been like, yeah, you're the guy, that's cool. And then they've got to it and they've been like, oh, we looked at the budget and we can't actually afford a bass player, so we're just going to put the bass on track and just have like drums and keys, and that's super standard, or like drums and guitar.
Yeah.
I've had that happen, and a lot of my friends have had that happen as well, you know. And it's not something to be bummed out about, because I'd rather.
So there is innovation in that.
Oh
that
yeah, of course, man. It's like
industry that's
but it's helping the industry survive,
really,
isn't
the
it?
computers are just trying to fuck us all.
Big time, man. Yeah.
Damn.
But it's also like, if it, you know, what am I going to do in that situation? Like. It's better for me just to
throw
wait.
water on that machine.
Exactly, yeah, for sure. Destroy the synths. But it's better for me just to wait until that artist like grows big enough that they can afford a bass player,
Right.
and then maybe if I've been gracious enough, then I'll get the gig. You know, it's like it's a fact of like, you know, the days of big record company budgets where you can have a massive band pretty much straight off the bat. That's sort of gone now, and like. Again, it's like we were talking about with people not wanting to take risks, like buying full albums. Record companies don't have the money now to take risks and like say, okay, we're going to pile all this money into a band or into an artist. They're going to get a full band and see what happens. Do you remember Duffy?
Yes.
Duffy, Mercy?
Yes.
That was her big tune, right?
Oh my God.
So great tune, right? Her band rehearsed like 9
That's
to 5.
That's our earworm. Thanks.
Yeah, right, yeah. But it's a good earworm.
We're listening to it in the car.
But her band rehearsed like 9. I think they rehearsed like 9 to 5 for like 4 weeks before that tour.
Wow.
And it's a full band as well. Like it's you know.
Well, I guess my wow is like that's a lot of cost. That's set like the booking the studio,
Big
making
time.
sure everyone's in the same place.
Everyone's day rates,
food.
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. And it's like that kind of money is just not really there anymore in a lot of circumstances.
Yeah, like as far as glory day goes, being
Yeah.
a session musician in the 90s, I imagine was fucking just woo.
Probably. I mean, even into like early 2000s. I mean, I don't know a huge amount about it. I don't want to speak like gospel about it, but I just know that there
My
was
imagination just runs wild. I'm
yeah,
like,
of course. But
champagne,
there's just a lot more budget, and that's kind of led to like.
Right.
But then it is still in a way.
But it
leading
makes sense.
to,
We were paying £9.99 a record.
Yeah, exactly.
At a time where
Yeah.
it's actually negative. Like it's almost dropped to the market correction of what the music's actually
Exactly.
worth.
You're right. And it's like
They
and
overinflated it for the longest time.
exactly. I mean, yeah, and it's also just you should almost applaud the innovation of an industry to kind of carry on working even with those hurdles to jump over.
Because you
know.
touched on like you have friends or artists that are made by Spotify.
Yeah, right.
Do you welcome like streaming the next generation, like virtual gigs and?
I think that like there was actually one of my favorite things that one of my favorite artists is a guy called Ben Kenny, who's a bass player in Incubus, one of my favorite bands. He's also a artist in his own right, and he plays guitar, drums, and sings. He's a ridiculous musician. But one of the things, someone asked him basically that same question, like, how do you feel about streaming and how do you feel about music piracy? Because actually, you know, you got to think that there was that gap in between sort of like MP3s and streaming that was
they
basically
never really
like
beat privacy. They just replaced it.
Yeah, literally that. And there was like, wait, you said beat privacy, beat piracy.
Piracy. Well, I mean, both,
I like it.
both
It's
are
fine.
applicable.
For sure, you can beat my privacy anytime. But there's this gap between
Sam.
like MP3s and like streaming, and it's like, and the gap was filled by like Napster and LimeWire.
Yes.
And so people just downloading stuff for free, and then now we put a price on essentially downloading music for free, where artists don't get much money from it, right?
But one is better than zero.
But one is better than zero, exactly, which is another good thing. But someone has said, you know, how do you feel about piracy and streaming to Ben Kenny? And Ben Kenny was like, I'm not worried until you can pirate a concert, right? And you just can't. You can't pirate that experience. You can't like there's no way to like to undermine like the physical thing of like going to a gig and seeing a band you love play tunes that you don't know what songs they're going to play. It's going to be different every night, hopefully, and it's going to be in a wicked venue. It's going to look great and it's going to sound great.
Right.
You know, and it's going to be lit really well. And you're going to have those interactions with that artist on that night that no one will ever have again because it only happens that one night. So you can't pirate that experience. So for me, as a music maker rather than a song maker, primarily in the live arena, I'm not too worried about streaming.
If
for
anything,
the
it's
most
better
part.
because it's better distribution for the
Better
concerts.
distribution for artists that I'm playing with. Yeah, big time. But then saying that, there is potentially a dark side where like if more musicians aren't able to make a profit from what they're doing, then they're going to hire less people. So there's it's literally like a two-sided coin. You know, either I'll get less gigs because less people need bass players because they're trying to slim their bands down, or I'll get more gigs because more music is out there because of Spotify. And I've seen it play into my hands both ways, and I kind of just have to be grateful that I'm like sitting in the middle of it rather than it all going the negative side, you know.
Got you.
Yeah,
that makes sense. So to that point, you've traveled, you've been around a lot of professional musicians.
Yes,
and you've toured a hell of a lot.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Give me like you've given me bits and bobs through the like. Give me the life of Sam.
Like tours I've done.
Tours, musicians that you've worked with.
Okay. I've. Well, we were talking about earlier, like coming straight out of uni, and I was talking about that like.
That's how we got here.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we got here. Yeah, but that Eurocrash show, the musical con about the Eurozone crisis in Germany. But that was my first legit tour. Was with a band called Raven Eye, supporting a guy called Joe Satriani, who's like a big guitar player. And for me I had that gig when I was 20, supporting him, and it was just like, what is going on? This is mental. And it's like suddenly you're playing in front of big crowds, playing wicked songs you love. It was a guitarist called Ollie Brown who led that band, and he's a phenomenal guitarist and singer, great guy. And we just went and did shows around Europe together. And my first time playing in Spain and the Netherlands and Germany and stuff, and I was just having a wicked time playing with him. And then kind of came off the back of that, and then started playing with a guy called Chrissy Matthews, who I did about 4 or 5 tours with in the UK and Europe, all over. Drove many thousands of miles, and basically I've seen like every single part of Germany through playing with this guy.
Over what period of time?
As in like how long will the tours be?
No, how long? You said it was a few tours, like a few
tours
over 2, 3,
we
4
would
years.
do between 1 and 2 tours a year. So normally it was like one big tour in spring, so that would be March, April, May. Mm-hmm. And then like festival shows abroad as well, like sort of single fly-ins rather than like driving around from the UK around Europe. You'd like fly in somewhere and do a pickup kind of thing. So I've been lucky to play like a lot of festivals in Europe and get that vibe.
Do you have a favourite that you played?
My favourite festival gig with him, with Chrissy, was probably a show called Freak Valley, which is in Siegen in Germany. And actually, the funny thing is that ended up being a live album, but none of us knew that they were going to record it live.
Oh, wow.
Until we'd finished the show, we got off stage and they were like, we recorded that and we want to release it on our label because it was amazing. And like, we were just, well, it sounds like I'm blowing smoke up my own ass, but they were like, that was great. We want to release it on our label. And so I've got it on like, it was like first of all, like a limited vinyl pressing. And I've got like the second ever one pressed like in my house. So It's quite cool to have a vinyl that you've played on just sort of sitting there on your record player, which is nice. So that was definitely a highlight, and it was just a massive crowd and a really great vibe. And it was kind of, I think it perfectly captured what Chrissy was about, where like, that show is like, it's quite a lot of random improvisation, and it gets quite heavy at points, and this is like a bit of a...
What's the name of the album? The
album is called Live at Freak Valley.
On Spotify?
On Spotify. I'm pretty sure it is, yeah. Check it out for some gnarly bass tones. But it was kind of capturing what he was about in terms of his sort of like, quite like very kind of malleable structures of songs and like improvisation and blues and jazz and rock and all sorts of stuff coming together. It was great. So yeah, so I did that for a long time, and then I ended up going on tour with a guy called Matthew Logan Vasquez, who is an American artist who, weirdly, I was talking about Instagram earlier, and like having not had a website, that's probably the only time someone's like found me on a website without any kind of... Actually, no, there was a recommendation. I was going to say without a recommendation, but there was a recommendation where he had like, it was kind of like someone gave my number to someone who gave my number to someone who gave my number to someone who then gave it to this manager who managed this American artist, Matt, in the UK. And then they needed a bass player for some European shows because their guy couldn't make it. And he just basically looked at everyone's Instagrams that he got recommended and just thought that I looked like like I'd be the best fit.
He looks like a bassist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he looks like a bassist.
He's got the shoulders.
He looks like a bass player who'll eat some European food. Let's get him on tour. But yeah,
I don't even know what that means.
I don't know, just desperate, really. But yeah, and I had an amazing time touring with Matt, and he's an incredible artist and wicked singer-songwriter, and he's worked with some brilliant people, and just kind of, and then did that tour with him in 2017. 2018, I did a tour with another American artist called Zach Logan from Nashville, and that was great because I was playing double bass and doing backing vocals, and it was properly like legitimate Nashville vibe singer-songwriter stuff, which was great.
Wow! And how long were you there?
That was in just in Ireland and the UK. That was like a really small run of 5 shows. But then I think that it's a manager called Neil Mason who lives in Nashville hooked me up with that after a recommendation from someone else.
Right.
And he's asked me to tour with some other people that he's brought over, or he will be bringing over soon, pandemic allowing, basically.
Freedom pending.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Freedom pending, vaccine pending. Lol. And then in between that, I also played with a guy called Youngblood, who's now quite big. I did about 7 months playing with him from the end of 2015 up to middle of 2016. Was that long ago? I think it might have been. Or sort of 16, 17. I can't remember actually, but no, it was definitely, I don't know, I'll have to look into it. But Youngblood, who is now massive and he makes some great music. I used to play with him for a bit while he had a bass player, and now he doesn't have one. And that's like I was saying, that's the way it goes. Like, doesn't have a bass player, and that's totally cool. And then another guy, I did another tour with Matthew Logan Vasquez, supporting a band called the Dead South, who are a Canadian bluegrassy kind of roots band. Okay. Just this really random thing of like a British guy playing with an American band, supporting a Canadian band, touring around Europe. And it's like the kind of complete like.
But it works.
It works, and the mad stars aligning, like the stars that had to align to make that happen were just so ridiculous that like I just feel completely grateful to do that. Basically, like I can reel off this list of people, and there's others as well. And Joe McElderry, who won the X Factor one year, I've done a few shows with him, just depping for his band.
Okay.
I've kind of done a lot of deps. A girl called Izzo Fitzroy, I've depped with her. She's a wicked blues soul singer. And I guess like I've just been really lucky, to have like loads of different stuff come up that's like that. And
I just have a memory of you.
Yeah.
Pre being 20, a lady named Paula?
Oh yeah. Paula, yeah. That again, like it was kind of one of the first like session-y things I did where I got paid some money to play original music.
Yeah.
So that
phenomenal
was cool.
voice.
Yeah, great voice, man. She's I think she's a singing teacher now mainly. And
wow.
I think her partner, Eddie, he works with Mark Ronson. I think he's actually won a Grammy. So there you go. It's who you know, folks. Who you know.
Do you believe that? Do you believe that for the music industry?
What, who you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, definitely. It's good. Like I'm saying, like without a website, I've been incredibly grateful to get this stuff, and I can every single one of those connections has come through like just knowing people and just chatting and just getting on with people.
So if you had one piece of advice for that's a lengthy amount of touring,
right?
So
yeah,
been around. If you had a piece of advice for someone who wants to do what you do but hasn't even started,
yeah,
or is in the works, what is it?
I think I would just say like diversify. So play a lot of different genres. This is not going to be one piece of advice. Sorry, but like there are 2 pieces of advice. So diversify. So both in the realm of like play a lot of different genres and kind of learn how to play them.
Right.
Because the ones I've listed to you there have been like soul and funk artists. So you've got to play like you got to play like a Motown bass player, and then like punk rock stuff. So you've got to be able to play like Paul Simon from The Clash, and then like kind of singer-songwriter led stuff. So you've got to be able to play with like sensitivity, and you've got to really understand how like the bass has a simple role fitting in that kind of like chord-led guitar music. So I'd say like be really versatile and like get a lot of skills under your belt in terms of different styles, and also just play different instruments. So like sing. I've got on gigs where I've played bass and guitar on different songs. Simultaneously. Woo! No, like swapping around. And like playing a bit of synth bass and stuff. So it's kind of like basically diversify is what I'm saying. So in terms of genres and in terms of instruments you play, I'd say, and singing is always going to be great. And the second piece of advice, which I'm allowed to give, even though it's not your question, is like have a backup. Like it's totally cool and respectable to like have something to back you up. And as we've learned in the pandemic, it's been especially important. The fact that I've taught, like if I didn't have the teaching, I would have had pretty much next to no income for these last sort of 6 months, apart from what the government's given us. And I'm very like grateful that I kind of stuck it out and taught a bit. And you know, I've got friends who've gone into like one of my mates has started like an Etsy profile where he does woodworking, bespoke. He makes like he'll make you a bespoke spice rack if you want. My good friend of mine, a singer called Chelsea, who's incredible as a singer, has now started an equally incredible cake making business where she makes all these crazy custom cakes and stuff. I've got other friends who have, like I said, have gone into the teaching and kind of had that as their thing. I mean, some guys are like driving for Ocado or like working in Sainsbury's. Like, cool, fine. Like, get a backup.
Yeah,
get a backup.
Music by any means.
Yeah, music by any means, or like just living by any means. Like, there's nothing wrong with something to kind of tide you over in case this obviously very uncertain industry that we're in does kind of fall apart a bit, because it really could. Even when the going is looking really good, you know. There's a drummer friend of mine. Who like she's had some crazy career credits, and she always was like, you know, don't worry about like quiet weeks, because you might also have quiet months and you might also have quiet years. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
And the way you see yourself through those quiet years is by diversifying. So I guess, and in terms of like taking on maybe like a little bit of a second career or like something to fall back on. So I guess one thing I'd advise is diversifying, but unfortunately I've got to explain a massive amount of subset stuff that comes off of that for it to work, you know.
It's a cool way to put it. Sam.
Yeah.
For all of your knowledge in the last, I can't even tell how long it's been, hour and 20.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries, man.
This has been amazing.
Thanks, man.
How do I find you online? Anyone that wants to learn from you, connect more?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm more active on Instagram, on @Sam_Weston4 on both of those, and you can see some pretty.
Why 4?
4 because
You're the
4 for the bass, baby.
Okay.
4 strings on the bass. That's a genuine reason, and it's got all my contact info on there. So just give me an email if you want to chat. Yeah, man, just give me let's talk over email. I think that's I've had people contact me just being like, hey man, let's have a chat, let's meet and work some stuff out. And I think
I have something to say about your opinions on music.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. Your song versus music theory is not right. No, I mean let's just chat and shoot the shit, man. That's the way to do it. But yeah, thank you, dude. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Thank you for coming along.
My pleasure. Pleasure. God.
I'm leaving all of this in.
Yeah, leave it all in. Yeah, no edits.